The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.
Ned Price, State Department spokesperson, responded to the draft law on foreign agents submitted in the Georgian parliament, noting that such a law could potentially undermine Georgia's Euro-Atlantic integration. According to Price, the proposed law would stigmatize and silence independent voices of citizens of Georgia who are dedicated to building a better future for their communities. Statements that this legislation is based on the Foreign Agents Registration Act, FARA, in the United States are patently false. In fact, this draft legislation appears to be based on similar Russian and Hungarian legislation, Ned Price said. In a resolution adopted on Wednesday, the European Parliament expresses its grave concerns about the deteriorating health of former Georgian President Mikhail Saakashvili, who has been detained in his home country since October 2021. MEPs call on the Georgian authorities to release Saakashvili and allow him to receive proper medical treatment abroad. They urge current President Salome Zurabishvili to use her constitutional right to pardon him. This would also reduce the political polarization in the country, reads the recent statement of the European Parliament. Since 2012, our government has been taking concrete steps for the European integration of our country, but what we are hearing now, even in relation to Mikhail Saakashvili, the campaign against our country is categorically unacceptable, and our so-called friends are involved in this directly, said the General Secretary of the Georgian Dream, Tbilisi Mayor Kakha Kaladze. According to him, public statements made by MEPs about Georgia are based on absurdity, lies, and misinformation. Credit Suisse Group AG says it has paid USD 210 million to date to billionaire Bidzina Ivanishvili in a long-running legal saga. The bank has paid in the sum over time for the proceedings across all the plaintiffs' accounts, a spokesperson for the Swiss lender said by email. The statement didn't break out a figure for an ongoing trial in Singapore. The statement is the most detailed admission yet of how much the legal wrangling is costing Credit Suisse globally, and emerged amid closing arguments at a two-day hearing in Singapore, which will mark the end of a trial that began in September. This is The Checkpoints. I'm Elena Gvangelashvili, the author and the anchor of the show, and the Checkpoints team is ready to sum up business and economics week for you. The electricity sector in Georgia had an outstanding year with record high export revenues and a positive trade balance. Growth in electricity exports revenues reflected high prices as Georgia remained net importer in kilowatt-hour terms with a net import of 0.6 terawatt-hours, reads the recent publication of Galten Taggart on Georgia's energy sector Electricity Market Watch. According to the publication, prices on the local market increased far below the global trend, rising by only 5.5%. Georgia was not impacted by the global energy crisis due to a high share of hydro generation in the supply mix, a regulated market structure, the availability of social gas for thermal power plants, and a moderate increase in import prices from Russia and Azerbaijan. Electricity consumption increased by 3.3% year-on-year, with a 9.8% year-on-year increase in the first half of 2022 and a 2.7% year-on-year decrease in the second half of the same year due to reduced production at Georgian manganese, metallurgical, and data mining companies. In 2022, HPPs accounted for 68.3% of total supply mix, TPPs for 21.5%, wind power plants for 0.6%, and 9.7% for imported electricity. First capacity auction of 300 megawatt of renewable energy was announced on February 10, 2023. Bids are collected within 45 calendar days. Auction winners will sign a contract for difference agreement with ESCO for 15 years of power plant's operation. Georgia lost a USD 76 million arbitration dispute with the Russian energy giant Interau. The dispute was conducted at the International Center for Settlement of Investment Disputes in 2017. Georgia also lost another investment dispute with Interau at the Stockholm Arbitration Tribunal, in which the country was ordered to pay USD 112 million. It is not yet known which of these two judgments Georgia will have to enforce, because according to the existing definition, compensation for both disputes is not collected. The subject of the dispute with Interau was tariff incomprehensibility. The argument of the investor was that Georgia violated the terms of the investment agreement and the investment memorandum, which caused multi-million losses. Interau owns 75% of the shares of Telasi, the company responsible for Tbilisi's energy supply. In addition, the Russian energy giant owns two hydroelectric power stations in Georgia, Kramhesi 1 and Kramhesi 2, through the Holland-based company Gardabani Holdings BV, and until December 2016, it also owned the old Gardabani thermal station. According to the 2012 management report of Telasi, a memorandum was signed between the Interau and the Georgian government on March 31, 2011, where the Georgian government gave the company a guarantee that the electricity tariff in the country would not be revised for 15 years. More on this week's economic news and outlook in our brief overview right now.
Georgian Prime Minister Erkel Garibashvili on Monday addressed the World Government Summit in Dubai. The Prime Minister focused on his country's economic growth amid grave political situation and challenges in the region and declining global economic prospects. Garibashvili added Georgia aims to develop the country into a true multi-dimensional regional hub, offering international stakeholders a competitive environment for expanding their business in the larger region. A significant increase in foreign direct investments was observed in 2022, the volume of which was doubled compared to the previous year by more than 100%. Our decisive actions helped to create more than 200,000 jobs over the past 2 years in Georgia. We have also succeeded in terms of stabilizing inflation at 9.4% last year, with the target of 5% for 2023. Many large-scale energy, infrastructure and logistic projects are underway or planned to further stimulate our economy and bring greater prosperity to our people, Prime Minister Garibashvili said. External merchandise trade of Georgia amounted to 1.4 million USD in 2023. 29.1% higher year-over-year, the National Statistics Office of Georgia reported. The value of export increased by 38.5%, reaching 459 million USD, while the impact increased by 25.2% and amounted to over 1 million USD. The trade deficit equaled 543 million USD, and its share in trade turnover constituted 37.2%. U.S. President Joe Biden nominated Robin Danigan for the post of a new U.S. ambassador to Georgia. Robin Danigan, a career member of senior foreign service with the rank of Minister Consular, currently serves as Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Central and Eastern Europe in the Bureau of European and Eurasian Affairs. In Georgia, Robin Danigan will replace Kelly Degnan, who has been serving as the U.S. Ambassador to Georgia since 2020. Georgian Vice Prime Minister and Minister of Economy and Sustainable Development Levan Davitashvili met with the representatives of the International Monetary Fund, the mission head James John, and members of the delegation. Georgia-IMF cooperation, economic trends, two-digit economic growth, ongoing reforms, and the situation in the region were the main topics at the meeting. The discussion also focused on renewable energy use, energy security, and facing challenges. Georgia's economic outlook, which has been stable for the past 2 years, was also highlighted. In 2022, the number of arrivals of international non-resident travelers on the territory of Georgia equaled 5.4 million, which is 2.9 times higher compared to year-over-year the Georgian National Statistics Service reported. The number of international visitors equaled 3.9 million, which was 2.8 times higher compared to the data from the previous year. In the reporting period, international visitors made 3.7 million tourist-type visits, which made 2.3 times up year-over-year. In 2022, the largest number of visits was from the Russian Federation, which amounted to 23.3% of the total number of visits. Turkey and Armenia come to the second and third places accordingly. In 2022, the purpose of most visits was holidays, leisure and recreation. Tbilisi and Ajarabia visited the most. The expanding during the visit made in 2022 amounted to 10.8 billion lari, which the average spending per visiting totaling to 2,000 lari. Tbilisi Mayor Kakakaladze recommended that A-category taxi drivers obtain license before March 20, otherwise they will be unable to obtain permanent permits to continue operations from April 1 and will be fined. Tbilisi Mayor also spoke about ongoing initiatives at the city government meeting on Wednesday. Tbilisi Hall will start rebuilding and redesigning 12 troublesome connections in Tbilisi, beginning with Beliashvili and Balanchini streets, Kakakaladze has said. Tbilisi Mayor also nominated David Makatsaria for the position of Cugureti District Governor. Over 800 drugs from chronic and oncology disease will be 40% cheaper starting from February 15, Prime Minister Irakli Garibashvili announced on social media. The first stage of the reference pricing scheme, which went into effect on February 15, including drugs for chronic and oncology disorders, with the list of prescriptions steadily increasing. Importers, wholesalers and retailers must agree on a maximum price limit for medicines. According to the government, the move is designed to improve accessibility to medications. Furthermore, the Turkish pharmaceutical market's opening in March 2022 reduced medicine prices in Georgia by 60–80%.
The Asian Development Bank ADB has invested up to 19 million lari, approximately $7 million USD, in a 2-year local currency gender bond issuance by joint stock company microfinance organization Crystal, the largest microfinance institution in Georgia. It is the first certified gender bond issuance in the South Caucasus and in the Georgian Stock Exchange. The proceeds will finance women-owned micro, small and medium-sized enterprises. The total bond issuance amounts to 25 million lari, with ADB as the anchor investor and the Bank of Georgia as co-investor, with a subscription of about 6 million lari. Gender bonds are social bonds issued to enhance gender equality and women's empowerment. Crystal's gender bond framework received a second-party opinion to certify its compliance with the social bond principles of the International Capital Market Association. Micro, small and medium-sized enterprises play a critical role in Georgia's economy, accounting for most private firms and providing more than half of all jobs, but their growth is constrained by lack of access to finance. Women in particular are disproportionately affected due to high collateral requirements and other cultural biases that hamper asset ownership. MFIs play an important role in providing access to finance to low-income borrowers, particularly in remote rural areas, which traditional commercial banks are generally reluctant to serve. Crystal is the leading financial inclusion organization and the largest non-banking financial institution in Georgia. It manages a loan portfolio of 400 million lari, employing more than 1,000 staff and operating through 50 branches, serving more than 130,000 customers across Georgia. The International Chamber of Commerce, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, and the National Bank of Georgia hosted a conference in Tbilisi on Thursday to promote trade of climate-friendly technology. High-profile speakers, representatives from local small and medium-sized enterprises, commercial banks, and business associations joined the conference, which has been entitled Green Finance for Sustainable Economy, to discuss current trends in trade finance and development needs to mitigate climate change.
Green finance is very important because it allows companies, and mainly smaller companies, that are involved in environmental investments and activities to be on the priority list for financing by the private sector, by the banks, or by the international financial institutions. In a world where global warming is the number one priority globally, it is important to come with the tools to allow the private sector to develop technologies and products that are planet-friendly. And for the International Chamber of Commerce, it is a number one priority. And in many countries of the world, we do put a lot of resources on developing green finance and securing green finance for entrepreneurs.
Green finance is very important for all of us. Greening the economy is a survival path that we all need to take. So we work very much on helping companies to green their production, their operations, and thereby we need green finance. So it's for all of us, and we need to do it now.
According to Katarina Hansen, the conference aims to discuss how commercial banks can green the economy through provision of finance.
The banks here play a spearheading role and they need to understand how to promote green investments into the economy. So all of us, households, companies and the entire economy need to focus on this to make sure that we operate in a sustainable manner. We in EBRD are very keen to support greening of the economy. So last year, 61% of our operation was towards green projects, and we're very proud of these achievements. In Georgia, we're very proud to work together with the National Bank, which is also spearheading the regulations for the commercial banks to green the economy.
According to Fadi Asli, Georgia's economy is taking the same trend in 2023 as in 2022, and it is mainly still dependent on Russian inflows, both money and migrants.
We see a lot of Russian money coming to Georgia, many Russian businesses doing business here, much less investors from other places. We don't have visibility what will happen. You know, there is political instability both inside and out of the country. So if things continue the way they are without major changes, we foresee an economic growth of 7 to 8%. However, if there are regional changes or internal changes, then this could affect economic growth to a great extent. So we still, live by the day without being able to make much forecast. Last year in 2022, in January and early February, no one expected that Georgia would have 10% growth. We were thinking about 3 to 4%. And then the war was a boom for Georgia. It benefited a lot economically from the war, and that's why we reached 10%.
More on this week's business news and outlook will be presented by Natia Taktakishvili.
Porsche Center Tbilisi sold 170 cars in 2022. Porsche Cayenne was the most in-demand model among the customers. The center expects a 50% increase in sales this year. According to Petre Tsakadze, director of Porsche Center Tbilisi, demand and supply chains is almost recovered worldwide, so the company might exceed the predicted indicators. He explains that there is a favorable situation in the international market as well, as there is no longer a chaotic situation and big delays. Porsche Center Tbilisi notes that there was a high interest in electric cars last year as well. 1/3 of total sales accounted for electric or plug-in hybrid models. Due to the high demand, the company expanded the area of electric charging stations. Electric chargers are already placed in 11 locations, and the company has invested $1 million in 2023. The number of electric charging stations is planned to be doubled. In addition, Petre Tsakadze notes Porsche Center Tbilisi will build a new showroom in Batumi, which will be opened in 2024. Confectionery Sugar Free launched last year opened a new branch due to the high demand. As its founder Rusa Quantaliani told BMWG, the range of products has expanded, which currently includes 55 types of confectionery. According to her, the biggest challenge for confectionery is expensive raw materials that prevents them from becoming affordable for low-income segment. Sugar-free uses 5 different types of sugar substitutes, one of which costs 95 lari. Speaking about future plans, Quintiliani says that they may soon appear in Batumi, although they have not yet decided whether it will be their own store or joint retail shop chains. The confectionery employs a total of 70 people, of which 5 are employed in the new branch. Sofia Britanchuk, director of the leasing company Office Space, says the occupancy rate at Wacker Plaza stands at 70%. As she notes, it's quite a good indicator. Director of the leasing company notes that demand on working spaces comes from different types of companies, including financial institutions, IT and legal service companies. In addition, she declares that the companies need smaller spaces as not all employees go to the office. Currently, the rental fee in Wacker Plaza stands at $23 per square meter. Newly launched tea-producing company Buet Tea produces 6 types of tea from the plantations grown in Kibuli. The company offers a diverse range of teas: black, green, herbal with citrus and blueberry flavors. Customers can buy Buet Tea products in local retail chains, Goodwill, AgroHub, and Europroduct. As the representative of the company, Mindia Tneladze, told BM.G, the product is now available on the local market, but in the future they plan to make exports to Germany as well as Saudi Arabia. The representative of Buet Tea also talks about the challenges and says that the newly founded company finds it difficult to compete with the well-known brands. Buet Tea currently processes 5-7 tons of tea and employs about 30 lockers. The investment volume totals to $1 million. Company Balavari says construction has become expensive from 12 to 50%. According to the founder of the company, Beso Tauberidze, it has affected the apartment prices, and as a result, their cost will increase by $60 per square meter for the next 3 months. The most painful blow for the construction sector is the price increase on the building materials, which also caused construction cost increase. The price of fuel is also grown, which affects us and makes land works expensive by 50%. The price of imported goods has also increased, including elevators and cranes. All these make up the overall price, noted Beso Tauberidze. A new branch of Tegeta Motors has been opened in Kutaisi. The service center is located in the central part of the city, which makes car service more available for the local residents. Total area of the new service center amounts to 530 square meters and can serve more than 70 cars per day. The customers will also benefit from online reservations. The new branch offers changing engine oil filters as well as tires and brakes. Shell, Warta, Bridgestone, Michelin, Continental and other premium brand products will be presented in the service center on Aghmashanabeli Street. As a result of the opening of this facility, Tegeta will have 2 branches in Kutaisi. Company Nugbari, located in Kakheti region, resumed production of Georgian traditional sweet churchkhela using the new equipment. Nugbari has introduced an innovative packaging technology that reduces food and production packaging waste. The new machines use fully recyclable raw materials and have 30% less waste than traditional vacuum packaging machines. Nugbari employs 60 persons and produces 5,000 or 6,000 churchkelas per day. Currently, both the number of employees as well as products have almost doubled. In addition to the local market, Nugbari products are sold to more than 20 countries, including USA, Ukraine, Lithuania, Germany, China, Poland, and Great Britain. According to Nugbari, their product price ranges from 3 to 5 lari, and it doubles for the new year. Homemade chocolate-producing company Chocomaza can't expand its retail space. As the founder of the company, Tamar Gogoladze, told BM.G, it's very difficult to find additional finances for a startup. We have rented space for production. However, since our orders are unstable, we no longer have this space and we are making it at home. We also wanted to have our own retail shop, but due to the lack of funds, we have stopped this plan, Tamar Gogoladze says. As the founder of Chocomaza notes, low prices stand out their products on the competitive market, as their chocolate price starts from £1. In addition to affordable prices, the company also offers delivery service throughout Tbilisi. Chocomaza produces more than 10 types of sweets with sunflower, hazelnut, walnut, and dried fruits. Company Group 3 opened a 4-star Epigraph Town Hotel in Tabukashvili Street in the capital city of Tbilisi. The company implemented the project in cooperation with Bank of Georgia. The total cost of the project is 6 million lari, of which the bank's investment amounts to 1.97 million lari, which has been fully spent for the purchase of the building and renovation works. The hotel is located on an area of 700 square meters and includes 4 floors. The hotel can offer its guests 31 cozy and comfortable rooms. Tbilisi hosted the 16th annual meeting of the Intergovernmental Commission of the Transport Corridor Europe-Caucasus-Asia TRASECA program. The 30th anniversary of the TRASECA program's founding and the 25th anniversary of the signing of the Basic Multilateral Agreement on International Transport for Development of the Europe-Caucasus-Asia Corridor were both honored during this year's session. Participants in the meeting talked about developing multimodal transport, streamlining border crossing procedures, expanding maritime transportation, and other topics relating to developing the TRASECA corridor. Turkmenistan's readiness to join the TRASECA main multilateral agreement merited special consideration. Georgia took over as the TRASECA Intergovernmental Commission's chair country for the following 2 years, starting from February 11, 2023. Levan Davitashvili, the Minister of Economy and Sustainable Development for Georgia, emphasized the significance of Georgia's chairmanship for the country's ability to better coordinate and communicate with its allies. When it comes to bridging Europe and Asia, Georgia has always taken the lead. Georgia, however, will not be able to connect Europe and Asia on its own. As a result, Georgia must work very closely with partner nations along the corridor, namely Azerbaijan, Central Asian nations, and then the European Union, Davitashvili declared. And before we say goodbye, the checkpoints will update you on APM Terminal's developments in Georgia and beyond. Logistics, transportation, and the Middle Corridor, these are the topics on which we recently had the opportunity to interview one of the largest players in the market. Our presenter and analyst, Georgi Tolordava, spoke with the Chief Commercial Officer of APM Terminals, POTI, Ian Rawlinson.
So today our guest is Ian Rawlinson, Chief Commercial Officer at APM Terminal POTI. Hello, Mr. Ian. Let's start by evaluating last year's results. What has 2022 been like for APM?
So we got off to a relatively slow start after the last 12 months had also been a big drop in cargo volumes after the outset of the pandemic. But we saw, as the year progressed, particularly after the invasion of Ukraine, that cargo volumes started to grow quite quickly. And by the end of the year, we were in a position where we were back towards volumes that were quite close to where we'd been in 2020.
So in your opinion, what caused the transportation collapse that has occurred after the start of the war?
As European companies started being impacted by the sanctions in Russia, they started looking for alternative routes to serve both cargo flowing from China to Europe by rail, but also cargo in and out of Central Asia. Particularly the Central Asian countries, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan. Most of their cargo historically has flown through Russia, and their economies are growing quite fast. And so they needed to find alternative routes through the market. And so we saw that the cargo flows coming across the so-called Middle Corridor through Azerbaijan and Georgia and then beyond have started to grow.
All right. And what are the challenges facing your company and the industry in general?
The biggest challenge is to do with the collaboration between the various parties operating along the Middle Corridor. It's quite a complicated route because it crosses 3 countries and 2 seas. And there are a lot of different organizations, state organizations, railway companies, shipping companies, ports, all involved in the transfer of goods from, let's say, the Chinese border across to Europe. And every time cargo changes its mode, so from ship to train, or changes rail gauge from narrow gauge to wide gauge and back again, then it needs to be handled and a new party is involved. So the biggest challenge is making sure that every time cargo gets to a transition point or a modal shift, that the people who have to do it are ready for it and are doing it quickly and efficiently.
So the communication and cooperation is crucial in this part, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. And let's talk about more broadly about the middle corridor. How important is it for Georgia, for the region, and for your company?
It's a terrific opportunity for Georgia. And we're very excited at APM Terminals to do everything we can to try and bring everybody onto the same page. This is one of those unusual occasions for us as a commercial business where cooperation between many players, railway operators, other port operators, and indeed governments, is so important to make sure that we're all working together to create this efficient corridor. Because although, as I said before, it is a complicated operation, when it runs smoothly, it can be a very competitive product with a long-term future.
So where are the weak points or the choke points in this corridor right now?
As I said before, the communication and the transfer of mode. There is a need for further investment on the rail side, both in terms of having faster trains able to run across all the countries. We also recognize that today Poti is not full, but with a very successful middle corridor, the expansion that we have planned is extremely important, because the total volume that flowed through the northern corridor before the war was well over 1 million TEU. Our capacity today is 550,000. With our expansion, the capacity goes to 1.1 million. So we would be able to handle significantly more of the middle corridor cargo over Poti as the railways also unlock their capacity. And then the third is the Caspian transit. That has grown capacity over the last 12 months. There were only 2 vessels running between Aktau and Baku. Now there are 7. And there are
that's quite the upgrade, if you ask me.
Yeah, exactly. And
is there more capacity to increase the ships?
Yes, there are a number of international carriers who are also potentially interested, if cargo volumes grow, to put ships in there to serve that market. One of the great things about marine transportation is ultimately, by definition, ships are mobile, so they go where the cargo is. So if cargo grows, then ships will be brought in to serve it.
That's how business works.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So let's think about it theoretically. In the future, can this middle corridor ever replace the northern corridor?
I don't think it's likely it will fully replace the northern corridor. We, however, do see a strong demand to have alternative routes, even once the situation normalizes in Russia and cargo starts to return to the northern corridor. We know that countries in Central Asia want to not be dependent on a single route in the future, just because it's always sensible to have a plan B. So we believe that, as I said before, this is the opportunity for Georgia and our neighboring countries to develop a really good, reliable, consistent service, which will then be able to provide a good, regular secondary route. And as I say, the capacity potential is very significant.
So let's talk about the government side. What our government needs to do to develop the middle corridor? Is there any opportunities they can invest in or make deals with other foreign governments to create this corridor and make it even faster and easier, and what's most important, cheaper for operators to transfer goods from one place to another.
So if we look at Georgian customs, so revenue service here, generally speaking, revenue service in Poti, for instance, works very well. I've been very impressed with the fact it's a fast, efficient process for clearing goods into the country.
But what about other countries?
If that efficiency can be replicated across the rail structure, both with revenue service between here and Azerbaijan, but also the railway themselves, to improve that coordination and that efficiency, then we'll have a great product. But it does need that same level of recognizing that what we have today is not as good as it could be, but we have examples in Georgia where things do work well.
And standardization might come in play in the other countries.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that all the countries are looking at are digital solutions. So, because transport is as much about communication as it is about the actual movement of goods, and so by a digital solution, so that it's a single message which is transferring across all the countries, that would massively improve the efficiency.
What are your expectations for this year and the next year?
So we've got off to a very strong start this year. Volumes continue to be strong, and the forecasts we're getting from our customers are that certainly for the rest of this year, we anticipate it should continue in much the same way. Beyond that, it's tremendously difficult to forecast. Of course, we get asked to do so all the time. Personally, I'm very optimistic. I think when I look at the energy there is across this region, that this strong cargo growth is going to continue for a while. But it is noticeable that this region, cargo volumes do tend to go in cycles. And so at some point there will be a downturn, of course, and we have to recognize that. But that will reverse as well. So, I mean, generally speaking, we see it sort of going...
Market cycles.
Yes, exactly, but generally on an upward trend.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And are you planning on new investments in other projects from your company side?
Absolutely. We're looking across Central Asia, first of all in Kazakhstan, but also ultimately potentially in Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Azerbaijan, in infrastructural investments to support the smooth flow of container traffic. One of the biggest challenges as we look into Central Asia is because the international companies haven't been there, the quality of service is not at the same level as it is here in Georgia or in the West. So what we want to do is bring our standards into those markets. And I don't think it'll be just us, and the markets are big enough that I think ultimately we'll see a lot of companies doing the same thing, and that in itself will improve the efficiency of the Middle Corridor.
Yeah. APM is playing quite crucial role in this infrastructure in the Middle Corridor. Mr. Ryan, thank you for your time. The interview was very interesting.
Thank you.
That's all for today. We will meet next Sunday, 11 a.m. sharp. Before that, follow us on BM.G and Forbes.G, and take care.
The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.